I'm standing there, my hands shaking as I pull the small, black velvet box from my dresser drawer. Chloe is in the doorway, silent, watching me. Her eyes are wide, trying to piece together why I'm packing, why I'm not yelling, why I'm not demanding an explanation. She knows what that box means. I spent 6 months meticulously choosing that ring, saved for almost a year before that. I had this whole plan, this perfect proposal mapped out for our trip to the Bay Area next month. I slipped the box into my pocket, not saying a word. The color drains from her face. She gets it. She finally understands what's happening. But to really understand how we got to this impossible moment, how someone goes from planning forever to walking out with everything they own in 2 suitcases, we need to go back just a little bit. It started the night before, on my birthday. I'd taken the day off, cleaned our whole apartment until it shined, even bought flowers for the table because Chloe always loved those little touches. We were supposed to have dinner at our favorite cozy trattoria, the one where they knew our order before we even sat down. She came home around 6, and I could just feel it. That familiar, heavy shift in the air. She had that look, you know? The one where a decision has already been made, and she's just trying to figure out the best way to present it to you. She didn't even sit down, still clutching her purse. She just said she had to leave. Told me, not asked. I was setting out plates, and I just stopped. Who? I asked, even though deep down, I already knew. It was Liam, her ex, she said. He'd called, in crisis. His dad was in the hospital, he was having a panic attack, and she needed to go make sure he was okay. The fork in my hand felt impossibly heavy. I quietly reminded her it was my birthday. She knew, she said, she was sorry, but this was serious. He had no one else. That line really landed. No one else, like I wasn't standing right there. Like our plans, our life, meant nothing. How long? I managed. Just a couple of hours, she promised. I'll be back before 10. We can still have cake. She pressed a kiss to my cheek and was gone. I heard her car pull out of the parking lot. I sat down at the table, 2 plates of pasta growing cold, and I waited. 10 o'clock came and went. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. 11, midnight, 1 in the morning, every call went straight to voicemail after the 3rd ring. I knew what that meant. She was declining them. I didn't want to believe it. I stayed up all night on the couch, staring at the door, making up every excuse in the book. Her phone died. Hospital reception was bad. She lost track of time. Anything. Because the truth was too much to even consider. She finally walked in at 7 the next morning. I was still on the couch. She looked tired, yeah, but not upset, not guilty. Just annoyed that I was awake. She dropped her keys on the counter. Hey, she said, like she'd just been out for a jog. Apologized that it took longer than she thought. I didn't say anything. Just looked at her. She started making coffee, as if nothing had happened. Liam's dad was stable now, she explained. He'd been really scared, she couldn't just leave him alone. I finally found my voice. You didn't answer your phone. She knew. Battery died. Left her charger at our place. Figured you'd understand. Those 3 words. Figured I'd understand, it hit me like a physical blow. She figured I'd understand she spent my birthday night with her ex, figured I'd be fine with it. Figured I'd just accept whatever explanation she gave me, because I always did. I asked her where she'd been. At Liam's place, she said. He couldn't be alone. He was really depressed. I finally said it out loud, making it real. You stayed the night. She told me he needed someone. And then, the kicker, you'd understand if you trusted me. There it was. The flip. Suddenly, I was the problem. I was the one making it weird, the one who didn't trust her. This was her move, perfected over the past year. Do something that clearly crosses a line, then act like I was unreasonable for even noticing. I stood up. My legs felt like jelly. I hadn't eaten since lunch the day before. I reminded her she said she'd be back by 10. Plans change, she snapped. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. He was having a crisis, what was I supposed to do? I suggested she could have called. Answered her phone. Come home. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them. Said I was being dramatic. Nothing happened. They just talked. He was upset, and she was there for him as a friend. That's what decent people do. Decent people. I just walked past her, into the bedroom. She followed. Where are you going? Her voice was starting to change now, the annoyance replaced by a tremor of nerves. I pulled my suitcase out from under the bed and started throwing clothes in. My hands were shaking, but I just kept moving. Kept packing. Because if I stopped, I'd have to think about what I was doing, and I couldn't afford to think. What are you doing? She asked again, her voice cracking. I opened my drawer to grab socks, and there it was. The ring box. Small, black velvet. Right where I'd hidden it 3 weeks ago. I'd looked at it every morning, imagined her smile, played out the proposal in my head 1,000 times. I picked it up, slipped it into my pocket. She saw it. I watched her face drain, the color vanish. Is that what I think it is? She whispered. I closed the suitcase. Answer me, she demanded. Is that a ring? I grabbed my second suitcase and started filling it. Oh my God, she choked out. You are going to propose. Her voice was completely broken now. She demanded to know when I was planning to do it. I moved past her to the closet, grabbing jackets, shoes, anything that fit. Say something, please, she begged. I zipped both suitcases closed and stood up. She was crying. Real tears, this time. Not the manipulative kind she'd used before when I'd caught her texting Liam late at night, or when his name had popped up on her phone during dinner, during movies, during all the moments we were supposed to be together. You can't leave, she pleaded. We can fix this. I'll stop talking to him, I promise. She pulled out her phone, showed me. His contact. Look, I'll delete everything right now. Please, just give me a chance. Her hands were trembling as she held up the screen. I didn't even glance at it. I'd seen this performance too many times. The dramatic gestures, the promises that lasted exactly as long as it took for me to calm down. He was really struggling, she kept saying. His dad might die. I was just being a good person. All while stepping in front of the door. Move, my voice came out flat, empty. She refused. Not until you talk to me. Not until you understand. I looked at her, truly looked at her, maybe for the first time in months. I'd been so busy trying to make everything work, trying to be understanding, trying to be the kind of partner who wasn't jealous or insecure. I'd stopped seeing what was right in front of me. She didn't look guilty. She looked frustrated that I wasn't playing along anymore. Move, I repeated. She stepped aside. I think, in that moment, she finally understood something had irrevocably broken. Something that couldn't be fixed with tears or promises or by making me feel like I was overreacting. I carried my suitcases to my car. She followed me down to the parking lot, still talking, still explaining, her voice getting higher and more desperate with every step. I loaded everything into my trunk. She grabbed my arm. Where are you going? I got in the car. You can't just leave. We live together. We had plans. We were going to get married. I closed the door, started the engine. She stood in front of my car, hands on the hood. I put it in reverse instead, backed out slowly until she had to move. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her still standing there, phone already in her hand. I knew who she was calling. I'd always known, hadn't I? I just hadn't been ready to admit it until I saw that ring box and realized I'd been about to promise forever to someone who couldn't even give me one honest night. It's funny how they make you question your own reality, isn't it? That's manipulation 101. I drove straight to my brother Ethan's place. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and just stepped aside without a single question. I dropped my suitcases in his guest room and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. My phone was blowing up. Texts, calls, voicemails. I turned it off. Ethan brought me coffee and toast around noon. I hadn't realized how much time had passed. He asked if I wanted to talk. I shook my head. He just nodded and left the room. That's when it truly hit me. I had just walked away from 3 years of my life. 3 years of building something, or at least, thinking I was building something. I pulled the ring box from my pocket and opened it. The diamond caught the light from the window. I picked it out so carefully, made sure it was exactly her style, classic, but with a little twist, just like she always said she wanted. I snapped the box shut and put it in the nightstand drawer. My phone stayed off for 2 days. I knew what was waiting for me when I turned it back on, the excuses, the explanations, the tears, the promises. I'd heard them all before, just never quite like this. But on the 3rd day, I needed to check my work emails. Project deadline. So I powered it on. 63 text messages, 22 missed calls, 14 voicemails. I didn't read them. Not yet. I opened my laptop instead. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe I was looking for proof that I was wrong, that I'd overreacted, that there was some explanation that would make everything make sense again. Or maybe I already knew what I'd find, and I just needed to see it with my own eyes. Chloe always kept her tablet plugged in by the bed, one of those things she never took anywhere, just used for reading before sleep. We bought matching ones last year, synced them to the same cloud account for shared photos, grocery lists, calendar events. I'd never looked at her messages before, never had a reason to. I trusted her completely. That word felt like a cruel joke now. I logged into the cloud and opened her message app. The first conversation I saw was labeled with her sister's name. I almost scrolled past it. But the message preview didn't sound like her sister at all. I clicked. It wasn't her sister. She'd renamed Liam's contact, hidden it in plain sight. I scrolled to the very top, to the beginning of the conversation. It started 8 months ago. 2 months after I'd started saving for the ring. The messages were casual at first, asterisk, how are you doing? Hope you're well. Just checking in, asterisk, then they got more frequent, daily, multiple times a day. Then they changed. Asterisk, I'm thinking about you. I miss you. Remember when we used to, asterisk, I kept scrolling. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the laptop. There were messages from my birthday, from the night she'd spent with him. Asterisk, he doesn't suspect anything. He never does, asterisk, that was her, sent at midnight, while I was calling her phone over and over. Liam's response came a minute later. Something about how I was too trusting, how that made things easier. She sent a laughing emoji. I scrolled further. Messages from our anniversary dinner last month. She'd excused herself to use the bathroom 3 times that night. I remembered thinking she might be sick. She wasn't sick. She was texting him, telling him she wished she was with him instead, telling him the restaurant was nice, but she'd rather be at their spot. Their spot. They had a spot. I kept reading. Messages from the week I picked up the ring. I'd been so excited, could barely keep it a secret, almost told her a dozen times. She'd noticed something was up, asked if everything was okay. I'd said everything was perfect. That same night, she'd messaged him about how I seemed happy lately. How that made her feel guilty. But not guilty enough to stop. Not guilty enough to stop, I found photos. Not just the kind you'd expect, though there were some of those, too. But mostly just regular photos. Them at coffee shops. Them on hikes. Them at the beach we'd talked about going to for months but never made it to because she said she was too busy with work. She wasn't too busy. She was going with him. There was a photo from 3 weeks ago. Her hand held up to the camera, showing off her nails. New manicure, she'd told me. Treated herself. In the background of the photo, barely visible, was a hotel room. I zoomed in. Could make out the edge of a bed, a lamp, a specific painting on the wall. I recognized that painting. I'd seen it before, when I'd suggested that boutique hotel downtown for our anniversary. She'd said it was too expensive, not worth it. But there it was. In the background of her photo. I checked our credit card statements. Found the charge. She'd put it on our shared card. I had paid for half of her hotel room with him. I slammed the laptop. Shut. Stood up. Sat back down. Ethan knocked. You okay? I wasn't okay. I was the furthest thing from okay. But I told him I was fine. He didn't believe me, but he left anyway. I opened the laptop again. I had to know everything. Had to see the whole picture. The messages went back further than 8 months. I realized she'd deleted the earlier ones, but I could see references to them, inside jokes, callbacks to conversations that weren't in the thread anymore. They'd never really broken up. Or if they had, they'd gotten back together long before she met me. Maybe even while she was with me. I found a message from a year ago. She'd sent him a photo of her engagement ring finger, bare, with a caption about how it wouldn't stay that way forever, but she was enjoying her freedom while it lasted. Freedom, while she was living with me. While I was putting her name on the lease. While I was introducing her to my family as the person I was going to marry. There were messages about me. So many messages about me. How I was safe. How I was stable. How I was exactly what she needed for the future she wanted. But he was what she needed for everything else. He asked her once why she didn't just leave me. Her response was clinical. Cold. She said I had a good job, good credit, wanted the same things she wanted, house, kids, suburban life. Liam didn't want those things. He wanted to travel, work odd jobs, live without plans. She wanted both. So, she was taking both. There was a message from 6 months ago, right after I told her I loved her family, loved how close we'd all gotten. She'd screenshotted my text and sent it to him with a comment about how easy I was to please, how I bought into the whole thing without question. He'd responded, asking if she ever felt bad. She said sometimes, but not enough to change anything. Not enough to change anything. I found messages from last month, from the night we'd gone to see her parents for dinner. Her mom had pulled me aside, told me how happy she was that her daughter had found someone like me, someone solid, someone who'd take care of her. I'd felt so proud, so honored. That night, after we got home, after I'd fallen asleep, she'd messaged him about how suffocating it all felt. How she couldn't wait to see him. How she needed a break from playing house. Playing house. That's what I was to her. A game. A role she performed. I scrolled to the most recent messages, from 2 days ago, the morning after I'd left. She told him about the ring, that I'd found it, that I'd walked out, that everything was falling apart. He'd asked what she was going to do. She said she needed to fix it. Get me back. At least until things were more settled. At least until things were more settled, not because she loved me. Not because she was sorry. But because the timing wasn't right yet. I kept reading. There was another message from later that same day. Asterisk, your ring looked so beautiful on my hand when we tried it on. Wish you'd been the one giving it to me, asterisk, my ring. The ring I'd spent a year saving for. She'd shown it to him. Let him see it. Probably laughed about it. I understood then. She wasn't sorry she'd hurt me. She was sorry she'd gotten caught before she was ready. Before the house was bought, before the wedding was planned, before I was locked in completely. I was an investment. A retirement plan. Something to fall back on. When the excitement wore off, I closed the laptop. Grabbed my phone. Scrolled through her messages without reading them. They all said the same thing anyway. Different words, same meaning. Asterisk, come back. Let me explain. You're overreacting. Nothing happened. I love you. We can work through this, asterisk, but I'd seen the truth. I'd read it in her own words. And I knew exactly what I had to do next. Sometimes the truth isn't in what people say to your face. It's in what they write when they think you'll never see it. I spent the next week at Ethan's place, planning everything out. Not in anger, not in revenge. Just in cold, practical steps. I made a list. Called my landlord first, explained the situation without drama. Told him I needed to break the lease early or find a way to get Chloe off it. He was understanding. Said if we both agreed, he could draw up new paperwork or I could find someone to take over my half. I thanked him and hung up. Cancelled the Bay Area trip, got a partial refund. Separated our phone plan. Changed my passwords, bank accounts, streaming services, everything. Removed her access to my credit card. Every shared thing we had. I quietly untangled. Ethan watched me work through the list and asked if I was okay. I told him I was fine. He said I seemed too calm. Maybe I was. Or maybe I'd already done all my processing in that guest room, staring at her messages. Maybe there was nothing left to feel. On the 8th day, I went back to the apartment. My apartment now, at least for the next few weeks until I figured out the lease situation. I texted her the day before, told her I'd be coming by at 2. Asked her to be there. I didn't respond. She was waiting when I arrived, sitting on the couch, our couch, looking small and scared. She'd been crying, her eyes were red. She stood up when I walked in, started to say something. I held up my hand. Pulled out my laptop. Set it on the coffee table. Opened it to her messages, the ones I'd screenshotted, saved, organized. I turned the screen toward her. I read everything, I said. Her face changed. Went from hope to sheer panic in less than a second. She looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I watched her scroll through the screenshots. Watched her realize how much I knew, how long I'd known. She tried to close the laptop. I didn't stop her. It didn't matter. I'd already seen it all. She started talking fast. Said it wasn't what it looked like. The messages were taken out of context. She was venting. She didn't mean any of it. People say things they don't mean when they're confused, she rattled off. I let her finish. Then I told her I'd already talked to the landlord. We were breaking the lease. She needed to figure out where she was going because I wasn't staying here either. She said we didn't have to do that, we could work this out. Keep the apartment. Start over. I told her there was no starting over. The landlord was waiting for us to decide who was leaving and who was staying, or if we were both walking away. She could have the place if she wanted it and could afford it. She switched tactics. We could go to counseling, work through this. Couples therapy. She'd do anything. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Why? I asked, just that one word. Why? If you wanted him, if you loved him, why didn't you just leave? Why drag me into it? Why let me buy a ring? Why let me plan a future? She didn't have an answer at first. Then she said something about being scared, about not knowing what she wanted, about thinking she could have both. I told her she couldn't. She never could. She asked about the ring, if I still had it. I said I did. She asked if there was any chance, any possibility that we could start over, that I could forgive this. I looked at her, really looked at her, saw her the way I should have seen her months ago. Someone who'd made a choice every single day to lie to me. Every text. Every late night. Every time she came home and kissed me like nothing was wrong. Those were all choices. No, that was all I said. Just, no. She started crying harder. Real tears this time, I think. Not because she was sorry, but because she was losing something she'd wanted to keep. The safety net. The backup plan. She asked where she was supposed to go. I suggested Liam's place, since she spent so much time there anyway. That made her angry. She said I was being cruel. I almost laughed. Cruel? I'd been sleeping next to her for months while she counted down the days until I'd propose, until she'd have everything locked down, until she could stop pretending so hard, and I was being cruel. She tried a different approach. Said her family loved me, asked what I was going to tell them. I said I'd tell them the truth if they asked, but I wasn't going to broadcast it. That was between her and them. She looked relieved for a second, then scared again. Asked what I meant by if they asked. I told her I'd already started getting messages from mutual friends. Word was spreading. Not from me, but from someone. Maybe someone from his circle. Maybe someone had seen them together. Maybe she'd confided in the wrong person. It didn't matter. People were starting to ask questions. Her perfect image was cracking. She begged me not to show anyone the messages. Said it would ruin her. I closed my laptop and put it back in my bag. Told her I wasn't going to show anyone anything. I didn't need to. She'd done this to herself. I grabbed the last few things I'd left at the apartment. My books. Some photos. My coffee maker. She followed me around, asking what she was supposed to do now, how she was supposed to fix this. I told her that wasn't my problem anymore. She grabbed my arm at the door, her voice desperate. Asked if I hated her. I pulled my arm away gently. Told her I didn't hate her. I just didn't trust her. And without trust, there was nothing left to save. She asked if I'd ever loved her. That question sat heavy between us. I had loved her, or I'd loved who I thought she was. The version she'd shown me. The one who wanted the same future I wanted. But that person didn't exist. Never had. I told her I loved someone who wasn't real. She said she was real. I said, no, she was just good at pretending. I left. She didn't follow me this time. I drove back to Ethan's place and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just empty. Ethan asked how it went. I said it was done. He asked if I wanted to talk about it. I said no. We ordered pizza and watched a game on TV and didn't mention her once. Over the next few weeks, things settled into a strange new normal. Chloe ended up keeping the apartment. Said she'd get a roommate to help with rent. I moved into a smaller place across town. 1 bedroom, cheaper rent, closer to work. Didn't need the space anymore. Fresh start. Sold the ring back to the jeweler. Got about 60% of what I'd paid. Used the money for new furniture. Started taking evening walks around my new neighborhood. Nothing intense, just walking, listening to podcasts, clearing my head. Ethan suggested I try meeting new people when I was ready. I told him I wasn't there yet. He said that was fine, but when I was ready, he knew some people. I appreciated that he didn't push. Her texts eventually stopped. Took about 3 weeks. The first week was constant apologies, explanations, promises. The second week was anger, accusations that I'd given up too easily, that I never really loved her, that I was cold and unforgiving. The third week was bargaining again. Final, desperate attempts at fixing something that couldn't be fixed. Then, silence. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved in with Liam. The ex. Her real choice. Someone told me they'd seen them at a bar together, that she seemed happy. I didn't ask for details. Didn't want them. Another friend mentioned she'd been telling people I'd left her without explanation, that I'd just walked out one day over nothing. I didn't correct the story. Let her have whatever narrative she needed. About 2 months after everything ended, I ran into Chloe's mom at the local supermarket. She looked uncomfortable. Asked how I was doing. I said I was good. She said she was sorry things didn't work out. I told her I was sorry, too. She hesitated, then asked if her daughter had really done what she'd heard. I didn't answer directly, just said, sometimes people aren't who we think they are. She nodded slowly, said she'd always liked me, hoped I'd find someone who deserved me. I thanked her and moved on. That interaction sat with me for days. Her own mother had heard something, had pieced it together. The perfect image had completely shattered. I found myself thinking about the ring sometimes, about the proposal I'd planned. The speech I practiced in my head, the future I'd imagined. It felt like someone else's life now. Someone naive. Someone who believed too easily. But I didn't regret walking away. Not for a second. Not when I saw those messages. Not when I understood I was just a placeholder. A safe option while she kept her real life hidden. Because the moment I stopped forgiving, stopped making excuses, stopped trying to understand the incomprehensible, everything became clear. She thought I'd never leave because I always forgave. Because I was safe, stable, predictable, easy. She'd thought wrong. And now she was living with her choice, and I was living with mine. The difference was, I could sleep at night. Walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes, it's the only way to save yourself. Do you think I was too cold, or did she deserve exactly what she got?